Built myself a bungee launcher. Well, technically you could call it a pedal launcher because it's pedal operated. And didn't take very long, took about 4 hours to do. About $50 for everything, that's including the bungee cord, so really not expensive considering the damage it has potential to save you from doing to your planes. Anyway, make sure when you go to get your parts, make a list, checklist, and more importantly, make a diagram. That way you can figure out every little part you're going to need, even though there is a list. That way if you don't understand what something is, because there's a couple different adapters and stuff you need that are kind of hard to explain, but having something like this in front of you will help you figure out exactly what that is. Now let me get into some of the tips. First of all, order your bungee cord now. Bungee cord will take longer to get here and it's harder to acquire than anything else. I went to Hobby King, it was like $6 for friggin' probably 50 feet. So order that now and then worry about everything else later. Okay? Things that you're gonna need besides what's gonna be listed as for tools, you're gonna need a drill, you're gonna need a sawzall, drill bits to drill your release pin hole, hot glue, and I'll explain to you where you're gonna need that in a minute. Let me talk about the bungee cord first of all. You're going to need to set the stake probably twice as long as your bungee cord is ahead of you. So if you have 20 feet of bungee cord, you want it staked off probably 40, 50 feet ahead of you. So you have enough power. Okay? The bungee cord's attached to the ground with a stake. Then there's also going to be two stakes holding the launcher down. One here and one in the back. A mistake I made that I still have to rectify is the fact that my stake doesn't fit through the hole. I should have gotten a metal stake or a smaller hole, so take that into consideration. Now let me talk about the launching mechanism. The most important part, the most critical part is the release pin and the board assembly. Make sure your pin is angled back. Make sure your pin is angled this way. If it's not, this is going to happen when you go to launch or set your plane up. Wind's going to blow, it's going to slip off, your plane's going to launch. Make the pin angled back. I'll worry about that later, but the pin angles back, okay? Make sure the pin is not, make sure the pin can move. This is a lynch pin. This is what I recommend doing. Have a lynch pin here that is flexible, because if it's not, and you have it mounted to this like they show to do, and it's drilled at an angle, it's going to bind. There's no question about the fact that it's going to bind with the board. You're going to have problems launching it and whatnot, so make sure to use a lynch pin that's flexible. Also, what everybody says to do, everywhere I've gone, is you use a 3/4 inch slide rail and 3/4 inch bar, and you use a 1 inch pipe here. That leaves all types of slop. I mean, it's so rickety that way it's not even funny. The whole thing wobbles back and forth several inches. So what you're gonna want to do what I did, glue 3 popsicle sticks on the inside of each one using some hot glue. That makes it so rigid and nice, and a little resistance to the sliding now, because you can adjust for different model lengths. You slide these in and out, put all different sizes of planes ranging from 60 inches down to 15-inch mini EDFs, whatever. Also, you're going to want to use a lead, like I just got a shoelace here. You can't have any tension on the lead, even when it's ready, even when it's the tension's on, it's locked and loaded, ready to go. Because if you have any kind of tension on this, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. Your plane's going to creep forward. So have a lead that's made out of anything but bungee cord material, like a shoelace. Have a ring halfway down. Tie a rag to the back of it. The rag just basically When the plane gets way out up in front, the rag catches the wind and just simply allows for the hook to release from the bottom of the plane. That's all the rag's for. It also just slows things down and smooths it out, gives you more slower linear pull as it's launching. What else? Also, if you decide not to use this foam, which this foam is really, I mean, you don't need it. It's completely optional. It actually will slide nicer without it. You can see I put duct tape around it because it was dragging, you know. But if you decide not to use the foam, make sure you take care of that edge on the top of there. Cut, grind, whatever you got to do. Cut this off so the plane doesn't catch that edge. Because that edge will destroy your wing. I don't care what it's made out of. So take care of that edge before you launch it. Make sure your plane's trimmed out before you use the bungee launcher, because this thing will launch your plane at higher speed, probably up to 4 times faster than a hand launch. And if your plane's not trimmed out, you're only 2 feet off the ground, if that, as it leaves that thing. Your plane's gonna roll. You wad their plane. Also, about this board, something I forgot to mention, make sure the majority of the weight of the board is up front, okay? This distance between the pivot point and here is going to be greater than the distance from here to the back of the plane. Why, you wonder? Because gravity is what's going to help keep this thing seated, besides any resistance on the pin. And if your pivot point was, say, up here, your plane would want to launch on its own, or your launcher would want to launch on its own. Let me show you how this works anyway. I have mine set up so you just barely touch the pedal and it launches. That's it. If you mount your pivot point ridiculously high, if you mount this point, I have mine, the pipe is resting right on the bottom support shaft, because then you only have a little bit of pedal push. That's what you want. You don't want your board 6 inches or 8 inches up off the bottom there, and you gotta actually look for it. So I think I've gone over the important stuff for you guys, and
That's awesome.